Chapter 1.
Jane POV. My head throbs with each beat as I slowly take in my surroundings, immediately ruining the copious amount of alcohol I must have consumed. Panic courses through my veins as I struggle to make sense of where I am. The room envelopes me, its details hazy and unfamiliar. I can discern that I'm inside, the harsh light filtering in through the window blinding me momentarily as I try to piece together the puzzle of my current location. My mind drifts back to the last clear memory I have, the annual Alpha meetup, a raucous costume party that I attended with my family. It's an event steeped in tradition, where the future leaders of our pack come together to bond and strategize. My sister and I had managed to slip away from the main gathering, eager to mingle with the other young alphas. My father, always emphasizing the importance of networking, had urged me to forge connections with my peers, especially given my imminent ascension to pack leadership when I turn 18. But now, as I try to recall the events leading up to this disorienting moment, my mind draws a blank. How did I end up here, alone in this unfamiliar room? The memories are elusive, like trying to grasp at mist. Dread gnaws at the edges of my consciousness as I realize the implications of my current predicament. Something isn't right, and I fear that whatever transpired in the gaps of my memory may have serious consequences. Waking with a groan, I rubbed my eyes, hoping the alcohol-induced haze hadn't distorted my vision too much. As I attempted to shift, a weighty arm resting on my waist jolted me fully awake. My gaze darted to the side, desperately hoping the arm belonged to my sister, and we'd simply crashed somewhere together. But dread washed over me as I realized the truth. I was not alone. A naked man lay beside me, and not just any man, but the infamous Blood Alpha himself, Alpha Brian of the Nightshade Pack. Panic surged within me as I grappled with the realization that I was tangled up with a figure who owned half the city and hailed from a rival pack. My father is going to murder me if he finds out, I muttered under my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Glancing down, I realized I was also naked, the slight discomfort between my legs a stark reminder of the events of the previous night, events I had no memory of. So much for that magical moment. It seemed I had tossed my virginity out the window with no recollection. He must be a shootlay, I chuckled bitterly to myself, unable to shake off the irony of the situation. Of all people, it had to be him. As my phone vibrated on the floor beside the bed, I nearly dove off to retrieve it, my pulse racing with every second. My sister's face popped up on the screen, and I hastily answered, whispering into the phone to keep my voice low. Hello? Where are you? Dad is going to lose it. I told him you're with me, but he's asking me to come home, she shrieked through the phone, her panic evident. I glanced around, my mind racing to figure out my location. Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was still at the hotel where the Alpha meet was held. Still at the Banks Hotel, I whispered, my voice barely audible even to myself. There was a pause on the other end, my sister going quiet for a few moments. Oh my God, please tell me you didn't sleep with Alpha Dickwad, she whispered urgently, her fear mirroring my own. If Dad ever found out, he'd probably disown me on the spot. Alpha Brian's reputation was scandalous and terrifying, and the thought of being associated with him sent shivers down my spine. I glanced over at the Greek god lying in bed beside me, completely passed out and oblivious to my internal turmoil. Part of me wanted to see the horror on his face when he woke up, but the rational part of me knew that could only lead to more trouble. If my father didn't kill me, Alpha Brian might just do the job for him. Hell, they might even conspire together to make my demise exceptionally horrific. No, of course not. I just fell asleep in one of the rooms here, completely alone. I lied through my teeth, desperately hoping she would believe me. I couldn't bear to involve her in my mess. She'd never be able to keep up the charade if Dad started asking questions. She didn't deserve to get caught up in my mistakes. Shut it. If Dad asks, tell him you stayed with Anna and me. I'll have Anna pick you up on the way. Be there in 5, she instructed before abruptly hanging up. I hastily gathered my clothes from the floor, squeezing into the skin-tight dress and tossing the ridiculous fairy wings into the trash can in the bathroom. Glancing at my reflection in the mirror, I grimaced at the excessive glitter still clinging to my face and the eye mask that my sister had painted on me. Chuckling at the absurdity of it all, I imagined the alpha waking up covered in glitter and wondered what he must be thinking. I vaguely recalled talking to him, feeling an inexplicable pull towards him. But now, looking at his still form, I couldn't help but question who had taken advantage of whom. Giving him one last glance, I grabbed my heels and clutch purse before rushing to the hotel door and swinging it open, only to collide straight into Alpha Brian's beta. I recoiled as I smacked into his chest, his gaze locking onto mine. I recognized him from the introductions last night, though thankfully, he seemed unaware of who I was. Grateful for the painted mask on my face, I realized it might be shielding my identity as my father's daughter, a revelation that could spell disaster if discovered. He smirked at me, clearly amused by the situation as I hurried away from the Alpha's hotel room. "My Alpha in there?" he asked, his tone casual. I dropped my head, silently praying he didn't recognize me, and quickly nodded. I sidestepped past him, avoiding any unnecessary contact. "Are you all right? Or do you need a ride home?" he inquired, causing me to pause in my tracks. "What? Do you give all your alphas one-night stands a ride home?" I retorted with a chuckle, trying to maintain a facade of nonchalance. He grinned in response. "Only the pretty ones," he quipped, and I couldn't help but roll my eyes before waving him off and hurrying to meet my sister. We needed to get home quickly before my dad decided to launch a full-scale search party to scour Mountain View City for his wayward daughters. 2 weeks later. One night was all it took to shatter everything I'd ever known. The alarm bells started ringing when I found myself feeling off for more than a few days. Werewolves like me rarely fall ill. Eventually, after enduring a week of sickness, my father, Alpha of the Shadow Moon Pack, decided it was time for me to see the pack doctor. Our home, Mountain View City, is inhabited solely by werewolves, divided into 4 packs. My father's pack is the second largest, which affords us considerable status in the region. Moreover, being his eldest daughter, I was slated to inherit his position. Or so I thought, until the doctor returned to the examination room after conducting some tests and shattered that illusion. The disappointment etched on my father's face twisted my heart. One night, one man, the gravest mistake of my life. She is pregnant. My heart plummets into my stomach. No, it can't be. I only had one encounter, and I don't even remember it because I was completely wasted. How on earth could this be happening? My father shoots me a stunned look before turning back to our pack doctor. "That's impossible. Run the test again." "She hasn't found her mate." "She can't be pregnant," my father insists. I shrink back in my chair. At 17, almost 18, I'm acutely aware of the cardinal rule drilled into every she-wolf's head. Save yourself for your mate. This is a monumental transgression, especially for my father. It would bring disgrace upon our family that I would violate the one sacred rule for she-wolves. While the males are afforded some leniency in their behavior, a glaring double standard, if you ask me, for a she-wolf, especially one in a position of authority like me, it's unforgivable. I would be a stain on our family's honor. Alpha, I've conducted the tests twice, Dr. Dodong assures him, but my father shakes his head, refusing to accept the results, or perhaps unwilling to. "No, run it again. It's incorrect." "My daughter is not some rogue slut," he declares, his tone final. His words cut deep, echoing the harsh judgments ingrained in our society. A woman who conceives with someone other than her mate is deemed one of the lowest, just shy of being labeled a traitor, though the treatment is often identical. Rogue whores, as they're derogatorily called, are forbidden within pack territories, permitted only on neutral ground, the city's main thoroughfare and the adjacent streets. In other cities, she-wolves who find themselves pregnant outside the bonds of matrimony are exiled, branded as forsaken wolves, condemned to fend for themselves beyond the safety of civilization. Without the support of a pack, they often descend into madness, becoming feral creatures forced to eke out a meager existence in the wilderness. It's a fate no one wishes upon themselves. But our city operates differently. We don't cast out these women beyond our borders. Instead, Our approach is somewhat kinder, if you can call it that. We designate them as rogues, allowing them to remain within the city limits, but without the aid or protection of a pack. I used to look down on them, those women struggling to survive due to their perceived poor choices. Perhaps this is my comeuppance. Soon, I'll join their ranks, navigating a world where I'll have to fend for myself without the safety net of pack support. As the tension thickens in the room, it feels as if the air is being sucked out, and I fear I might faint. Yes, Alpha, I'll run the test again, Doc Dodong replies, hastily retreating from my father's menacing glare. My father begins to pace, and my heart races in tandem with his movements. When he finally stops and turns to me, his eyes searching for reassurance, my stomach churns with dread. He must be mistaken. You're not capable of such disgrace. You wouldn't bring shame upon me like this, he insists, seeking affirmation. I shrink further into my chair, unable to meet his gaze. Before he can say more, the doctor returns, halting his tirade. The results remain unchanged. Alpha, the doctor announces, his gaze shifting to me with a hint of pity. I swallow hard, fixating on the pack doctor with wide eyes, silently pleading for him to intervene and shield me from my father's fury. Yet, deep down, I know the elderly, gray-haired man is no match for the wrath of my father. The realization hits me like a physical blow. I still haven't shifted. For werewolves, the shift typically occurs on our 18th birthday, marking the onset of our ability to seek out our mates. It's a sacred milestone, one I've witnessed friends and family celebrate. But now, consumed by fear, I wonder how my pregnancy will disrupt this process. Pregnant bodies cannot shift. It's a protective measure to safeguard the unborn pup. My father emits a low growl, his body tensing as he whirls around to glare at me, his fists clenched at his sides in a struggle to restrain the urge to shift. Werewolves often shift when overwhelmed by anger or preparing for confrontation. Despite his efforts, he's barely containing himself. His eyes flicker with black, and his body quivers with rage. My father has always taken immense pride in my sister and me, showcasing us to others and boasting about what exceptional daughters we are. He's groomed me in his likeness, nurturing the belief that I will one day lead our pack with the same strength and wisdom. But now, as I see my reflection mirrored in his wolf-like eyes, he appears on the brink of unleashing his fury upon me. I've never witnessed him so consumed by wrath, and that's saying something. How far along is she? Father's question drips with venom, sending a chill down my spine. We can schedule an ultrasound for next week to determine the gestation, Doc replies, and I find myself staring at my hands, unable to meet anyone's gaze. No, do it now. We need to take care of this before word gets out. I refuse to have a rogue whore as a daughter. This stays confidential, understood, Doc. Father's tone brooks no argument. The doctor nods nervously, his compliance evident. My mouth hangs open in shock, utterly dumbfounded by my father's callous words. To abort a baby goes against everything the moon goddess stands for. Wait, I interject, finally finding my voice. My father's gaze snaps to me, and the doctor instinctively edges away, sensing the intensity of my father's aura. Wait for what? You're not keeping this abomination. We can bury it, keep it hushed up, and you can still ascend to Alpha. We just need to deal with this mistake. Then everything can return to normal, Father declares, his words chillingly matter-of-fact, as if erasing this sin against the moon goddess could be so easily brushed aside. No, Father. I can't do that. Please, just let me talk to Mom. We can figure this out together, I implore, desperation lacing my words. No, you will terminate the pregnancy, and then we will leave. Doc, prepare whatever is necessary. I'm not leaving this office until this is resolved, Father commands, his tone unyielding. Tears threaten to spill at his ultimatum. While I hadn't planned on becoming pregnant, I can't bring myself to commit such a heinous act. Aborting a pregnancy goes against everything I believe in. It's a line I refuse to cross. Alpha, I'm sorry, but I can't proceed without the patient's consent, unless there are medical grounds, Doc interjects nervously. She's willing, isn't that right, Jane? Father demands, attempting to coerce me into compliance. But I meet his gaze defiantly. My resolve is unwavering. No, I assert, bracing myself for his reaction. Never in my life has my father laid a hand on me, so the shock of his strike is almost as painful as the physical blow itself. I feel the imprint of his fingers burning against my cheek, the sting of betrayal piercing deeper than any physical pain. "Then you are no longer my daughter," he declares coldly before storming out of the room, leaving me alone with the weight of his disownment heavy upon me.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like the video